Flying in moderate or severe icing conditions, or even if ice is suspected after exiting the icing cloud, the pilot should hand fly the aircraft, or at least periodically disconnect the autopilot to get the feel of the controls and airplane response. Make sure your hands are firmly on the controls when you do this. The use of autopilot, particularly on aircraft that rely on aerodynamic balance for trim, may mask the control and handling anomalies that would normally be detected by the pilot at an earlier stage. Pilots flying aircraft without hydraulically powered flight controls may encounter extremely high control forces if the autopilot suddenly disconnects. Remember that in most icing encounters, the aircraft is flyable, but the operational speed or angle of attack margins have decreased. Another area of concern for pilots flying in icing conditions is the phenomenon known as supercooled large droplets, or SLD. This phenomenon is currently under intense study by NASA, the FAA, and the National Center for Atmospheric Research, and others. SLD refers to droplet sizes that are larger than what is currently required for aircraft certification into known icing. Freezing rain and drizzle of any intensity are forms of SLD. The droplet sizes in freezing drizzle can be as large as 500 microns. Freezing rain droplets can reach 3,000 microns or 3 millimeters in diameter. Freezing rain and drizzle are dangerous because of their potential to accrete ice aft of protected surfaces. Freezing rain and freezing drizzle are both observed and forecast as surface meteorological conditions. SLD, whether it is freezing rain or freezing drizzle, when observed on the surface, is typically found below 3,000 feet AGL. However, it has been observed to extend up to 9,000 feet AGL. It is also possible for SLD conditions to exist only at altitude and not survive to the surface. Again, the vertical extent is typically a 3,000-foot band, but can reach significantly wider. Ice pellets reported at the surface are a good indicator of SLD aloft. In recent years, encounters with SLD conditions up to 18,000 feet have been reported. Be aware, no ice protection system is currently designed for flight in SLD conditions. There is no aircraft today that is protected for flight in freezing rain, freezing drizzle, or any SLD condition. Whether the aircraft is equipped with a de-icing or anti-icing system, encounters with SLD icing conditions are extremely dangerous because the ice accretion can extend well past the protected surface. It is also possible to be in a condition where water can run back and freeze aft of the protected area. This might occur when turning on a thermal ice protection system after some ice has accreted, or in certain meteorological conditions.
Ice forms after the protected area through two means. One is through direct impact, the second is through runback. In the case of direct impact, large droplets can strike not only the leading edge, but can cross streamlines and impact behind the leading edge, behind the protected area, and form ice. In the case of runback, there are various ways for this to happen, but essentially the end result is that water flows aft of the protected area and can form ice, again, in that unprotected area. This is an extremely hazardous situation because you now have ice where you cannot remove it, and you need to exit the condition, get to an area that's warm to melt the ice, or to an area that's dry to sublimate that ice.
If there is ice on the aft part of an unheated spinner, the aircraft is probably in an SLD icing encounter. On some aircraft, another visual cue of an SLD condition is ice accretion on the side windows.
If you confirm that you are in freezing drizzle, freezing rain, or any other severe icing conditions, it is important that you leave those icing conditions immediately. There is no one-set recommendation for exiting icing conditions. Situation awareness is important. You need to know the surrounding weather, where the cloud tops are, the bottoms, the terrain beneath the clouds, before exiting. And then let the air traffic control people know what your intentions are, and let them know that it is a situation you must leave immediately.
The bottom line is that most ice protection systems do a pretty good job in what many people call normal icing conditions. But you have to use the system the way it was designed, know what's in the pilot's operating handbook. However, if you're in an unusual icing condition or a heavy icing condition, hand fly the aircraft. If you're slowing the aircraft or changing configurations, hand fly the aircraft. The airplane might be talking to you, and if you're on autopilot, you're not going to hear it. There is another situation, though, that you have to be aware of, and that's freezing rain, freezing drizzle, or SLD. If you find yourself in these conditions, treat it as an emergency. If you can't get out of it right away, declare an emergency.
If, however, you are in normal icing, review the icing information provided by the aircraft manufacturer in the Pilot Operating Handbook and know the performance limits of the aircraft. Be especially vigilant for changes in control feel and maintain airspeed awareness. When operationally possible, it is always a good idea to change altitude or course to avoid any icing conditions. SLD encounters, however, are much more serious and may require a declaration of an emergency to escape. We hope the information presented in this video provided a more thorough understanding of the symptoms of and recovery procedures for a roll or pitch upset. We also hope it helped in recognizing potentially hazardous icing conditions. If the aircraft enters an uncommanded roll, you must reduce the angle of attack. The best way to do this is through lowering the nose to recover the aircraft, adding power, and if necessary, lowering the flaps one notch. If, on the other hand, after flap extension, the aircraft undergoes an uncommanded pitch, you must pull back on the yoke. Retract flaps to the previous. Roll upsets and wing stalls occur at lower airspeeds. Tail stalls occur at higher speeds and typically during or after flap extension. If SLD conditions are suspected or confirmed,